Be careful. There is something happening in your life right now that you have not yet named. A whisper, a restlessness, a feeling that something inside you has changed, and you cannot quite put your finger on what it is. You walk through your days and everything looks the same on the outside, but on the inside, my beloved brother, my beloved sister, something is different, something is broken. And you know it, you feel it every time you make a choice you swore you would never make again. Every time you find yourself in a place you said you would never return to. Every time you hear that voice inside you, the one that sounds like your own conscience, the one that sounds like your heart crying out, and you ignore it anyway. This is not about judgment. This is not about shame. This is about something far more serious, far more real, far more devastating than any of that. This is about the marks that sin leaves on the heart, the marks that sin leaves on the heart, the marks that you carry with you every single moment, whether you acknowledge them or not. And tonight, we are going to talk about something that most people are too afraid to say out loud. We are going to talk about the spiritual damage that accumulates inside of us. When we keep choosing the same sins, the same mistakes, the same paths that take us further and further away from who we are supposed to be. You clicked on this video because something inside you recognized that title. Something inside you said, that's me, that's what I am feeling. That's what I have been trying to understand. And I want you to know right now, before we go any further, that the fact that you are here, that you are willing to listen, that you are willing to face this truth, that itself is a sign of something beautiful inside you. That itself is evidence that you have not yet completely hardened your hearts. That itself is proof that there is still a part of you that wants to change, that wants to be better, that wants to come back home to Allah. Because that is what this journey is really about. It is about coming home. But first, we have to understand what we have done. We have to look at the damage that has been accumulating. And I know that is not comfortable. I know that you did not open this video to feel worse about yourself. I know that you came here hoping for comfort, hoping for solutions, hoping for quick answers. But I am going to ask you something harder than that. I am going to ask you to be honest with yourself for the next few minutes. Not honest with me, not honest with anyone else. Honest with yourself and with Allah. Because only in that honesty can real change begin. Think about the first time you did the thing that you keep doing now. The first time you broke that rule. The first time you crossed that line. Do you remember how it felt? Do you remember the guilt? Do you remember the way your heart trembled? I want you to sit with that memory for a moment. I want you to feel it again, because that feeling, that guilt, that trembling, that sense of wrongness, that was your heart trying to protect you. That was your conscience trying to save you. That was Allah's mercy trying to keep you from going further down a path that would destroy you. But then you did it again. And the second time, the guilt was a little bit quieter. The trembling was a little bit less intense. Your heart, which had been screaming at you, was speaking a little bit softer. And the third time, the guilt was even quieter. By the 10th time, by the 50th time, by the 100th time, your heart was barely speaking at all. It was as if something had been covered over, as if layer upon layer of dust had settled on the most precious thing inside you. This is what I mean when I say that sin leaves marks on the heart. It is not just a metaphor. It is not just poetry. It is a real spiritual condition. It is a real psychological reality. With every sin that you commit, with every time you ignore that voice inside you, with every time you choose the forbidden over the pure, something happens to your heart. Your sensitivity decreases. Your ability to feel shame decreases. Your ability to feel the presence of Allah decreases. You become slowly and imperceptibly someone who is no longer capable of the same level of spiritual awareness that you once had. And the most devastating part is that you do not even notice it happening. You do not wake up one morning and think, my heart is now 40% more hardened than it was 5 years ago. It happens gradually. It happens in increments so small that you cannot measure them. You just find yourself doing things that you once found unthinkable. You find yourself comfortable in situations that once filled you with shame. You find yourself surrounded by people and influences that are slowly, methodically poisoning your heart. And you do not even realize it is happening until you are so far gone that you can barely remember what it felt like to care. But here is the thing that I want you to understand, and I need you to hear this very clearly. That awareness that you have right now, that discomfort that you are feeling, that sense that something is wrong, that is not a curse. That is the most precious gift. That is Allah's mercy calling to you. That is your heart, despite everything, still trying to wake you up. Despite all the layers of dust, despite all the marks, despite all the damage, your heart is still not completely dead. Your conscience is still not completely silent. And that means that change is still possible for you. Allah tells us in the Quran, in a hadith Qursi, words that should shake us to our very core. The heart of my servant follows my commands. If the servant keeps away from things that are forbidden, I keep away from the heart, the things that Allah dislikes. If the servant draws near to the forbidden things, I draw near to the heart, the things that Allah dislikes. What does this mean? It means that Allah does not just punish us from the outside. He does not just send us trials and tests. He allows the consequence of our actions to manifest directly within our own hearts. We become hardened. We become blind. We become deaf to the call of Allah. And we do this to ourselves, not because Allah wants to punish us, but because this is the natural consequence of turning away from the truth over and over again. Think about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and how he understood the human heart. He said that the heart is like a mirror, and every time we sin, the mirror becomes tarnished. And if we keep sinning, if we keep running away from the truth, the mirror becomes so clouded that we can no longer see anything. We can no longer recognize right from wrong. We can no longer feel the presence of Allah. We become walking around in darkness, convinced that we are in the light. And the most tragic thing is that we then spend the rest of our lives running. We run into relationships that destroy us. We run into careers that empty us. We run into careers that empty us. We run into addictions and habits and compulsions, ions that consume us. And we do all of this because our hearts are no longer capable of guiding us. Our mirrors are too tarnished. Our sensitivity is too dulled. And we do not even know why we are running or where we are supposed to be running to what. Stop with me here for a moment. Stop running, stop justifying, stop explaining away. Just sit with this question. What would it feel like if you could get that sensitivity back? What would it feel like if your heart could remember how to tremble at the presence of sin? What would it feel like if your conscience could be polished back to clarity again? What would it feel like to look in the mirror, that spiritual mirror, and to see yourself again the way that Allah originally created you? This is not a fantasy. This is not something that happens only to the righteous or the scholars or the people who were born into good families. This is something that is available to every single person. No matter how far you have gone, no matter how many times you have fallen, no matter how many times you have fallen, no matter how dark your heart has become, because Allah's mercy is vaster than the heavens and the earth, and Allah's forgiveness is unlimited, and Allah's capacity to restore and to heal and to remake a broken heart is something that we will never fully understand in this life. But the question is not whether it is possible. The question is whether you are willing to do the work. The question is whether you are willing to stop running. The question is whether you are willing to face what you have done and to ask for forgiveness with a sincerity that you have perhaps never felt before. Because here is the secret that nobody talks about. Allah does not need you to be perfect. Allah does not need you to have it all figured out. Allah does not need you to be someone else. Allah just needs you to be honest. Allah just needs you to stop lying to yourself. Allah just needs you to stop lying to yourself. Allah just needs you to acknowledge what you have done and to turn back to Him with a genuine intention to change. And when you do that, when you finally stop running, when you finally face the truth, when you finally let your heart break in front of Allah, that is when the healing begins. That is when the marks start to fade. That is when your heart, that precious mirror, begins to be polished again. That is when you remember what it felt like to care about something other than yourself. That is when you remember what it felt like to be clean. I know that you are tired. I know that you have been carrying this for a long time. I know that you have been pretending that it does not matter, that you are fine, that you have moved on. But you have not moved on. You are still there in that moment, in that place where you made that choice. And every time you make a similar choice, you are reliving that moment. You are choosing to stay in that darkness. You are choosing to add another mark to your heart. But what if tonight is different? What if tonight is the night that you finally say no? What if tonight is the night that you finally admit that you cannot keep living like this? What if tonight is the night that something inside you breaks open? Not from despair, but from hope. Not from judgment, but from mercy. But from mercy. Not from the fear of punishment, but from the love of Allah calling you home. Because this is what I want you to understand before we move to the second part of this journey. Before we talk about what happens when you finally wake up and decide to change. Before we talk about the spiritual disciplines that will restore your heart and remake your life, I want you to understand that there is a pathway back. I want you to understand that the darkness that you are in right now is not permanent. I want you to understand that Allah never closes a door unless He is trying to direct eye toward a better one. I want you to understand that the very awareness that you have right now, the discomfort, the restlessness, the sense that something is wrong, that is the door opening. That is Allah's first step toward you. That is mercy disguised as pain. The marks are real. The damage is real. The hardness of the heart is real. I am not going to lie to you and tell you that it is not. I am not going to comfort you with false platitudes and empty reassurances. But what is also real, what is also undeniable, is that none of it is permanent. None of it is beyond the reach of Allah's forgiveness. None of it is more powerful than Allah's mercy. Because Allah is not just merciful in the abstract. Allah is not just forgiving in theory. Allah is actively, continuously, desperately reaching out to you, trying to pull you back, trying to save you from yourself. And the proof of this is the very fact that you are sitting here right now, listening to this message, feeling the stirring in your heart. If Allah had given up on you, you would not be here. If Allah did not still love you, you would not be feeling this. If Allah did not still see something worth saving in you, you would not be experiencing this discomfort. Because the comfortable people, the ones who have hardened their hearts completely, the ones who have silenced their consciences entirely, they do not listen to messages like this. They do not feel this stirring. They have successfully convinced themselves that they are fine. But you are not fine. And thank God for that. Thank God that you are not fine. And thank God that you are not fine. Thank God that there is still something inside you that is crying out. Thank God that your heart has not completely died. Because that cry, that stirring, that discomfort, that is the pathway to redemption. That is the beginning of change. That is the first step on the journey back home. And now, my beloved, brothers and sisters, now that we have looked at the damage, now that we have been honest about the marks that sin has left on your heart, we have to talk about what happens next. Because waking up is only the beginning. Because acknowledging the problem is not the same as solving it. Because acknowledging what you have done is not the same as becoming someone who does not do it anymore. What you do in the next moments, what you do in the silence of the night, and what you do when nobody is watching and nobody will know, that is what will determine whether this message transforms your life or becomes just another video that you watched and then moved on from. That is where everything changes. That is what we are going to explore now. Because there is something that happens in the darkness that cannot happen in the darkness, that cannot happen in the light. There is something that opens up in the silence that remains closed when we are surrounded by noise. There is something that Allah does for those who finally stop running and start turning back toward Him in the loneliness of the night. And this is where the real transformation begins. This is where the mirrors begin to be polished. This is where the marks start to fade. This is where your heart, that precious, wounded, desperately hoping heart of yours begins to heal. In the nights when you cannot sleep, when you are alone with your thoughts, when the world is dark and quiet, and it is just you and your conscience and Allah, this is when the most powerful work can happen. Because in the day, you can run. In the day, you can distract yourself. In the day, you can surround yourself with voices and music and people and work and 1,000 different things that keep you from thinking about what you have done. But in the night, when everything is still, when the only sound is the sound of your own breathing and the beating of your own heart, you cannot write anymore. You cannot hide anymore. You cannot lie to yourself anymore. And this is precisely why Allah loves the night so much. And this is precisely why the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to spend his nights in prayer and tears. This is why he told us that the best prayer after the obligatory prayers is the prayer in the middle of the night. Because in the night, the veils are lifted. In the night, the pretense falls away. In the night, your heart is exposed in a way that it cannot be during the day. And when your heart is that vulnerable, that raw, that honest, that is when Allah can touch it. That is when the healing can truly begin. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said something so profound, something that should change the way we think about the night forever. He said, the best night prayer after the obligatory prayers is to pray in the last third of the night. Why is the last third of the night so special? Why did Allah and His Prophet emphasize this time again and again? Because in the last third of the night, when the world is deepest in sleep, when the darkness is most complete, when the darkness is most profound, this is when the gates of heaven are opened the widest. This is when Allah is closest to His servants. This is when dua is most likely to be answered. This is when the marks on your heart are most likely to be healed. Think about what this means. Think about what Allah is saying to us through the words of His Prophet. He is saying, I am here. I am waiting for you. I am listening. In the moment when you are most alone, I am most present. In the moment when you feel most far from me, I am most close to you. All you have to do is call. All you have to do is turn around. All you have to do is stop running and face me with honesty. But here is what most of us do. We hear this, we understand it, we think it is beautiful, and then we go back to our lives and we do nothing with it. We continue to sleep through the night, hour after hour, never once pausing to acknowledge that there is a door open that we are walking past, never once stopping to consider that there is an invitation being extended to us that we are refusing. Never once thinking about what it might mean to actually show up, to actually be present, to actually spend time in the darkness with Allah when nobody else is watching, nobody else is judging, nobody else is judging, nobody else even knows. And do you know what breaks my heart? Do you know what breaks my heart? Do you know what causes me to weep when I think about it? It is that most people will die without ever having experienced this. Most people will spend their entire lives running from themselves and running from Allah and running from the possibility of real change and real healing. And they will go their whole lives thinking that they are fine, thinking that they are managing okay, not realizing that they are suffocating, not realizing that their hearts have become so hardened that they can barely feel anything at all, not realizing that they have missed the greatest invitation that they will ever receive. Because this is the invitation that changes everything. This is not about becoming more disciplined. This is not about developing better habits. This is not about self-improvement or personal growth or any of the other language that we use when we want to change something about ourselves. This is about something far deeper. This is about opening your heart to the presence of Allah in a way that you have probably never done before. This is about being completely, vulnerably, utterly honest with the one who created you and knows every secret of your heart already. This is about crying in front of God. This is about begging. This is about throwing away your pride and your pretense and your carefully constructed image of who you are. And when you do, that is when you finally allow yourself to be that broken, that vulnerable, that honest. That is when the transformation happens. That is when the marks begin to fade. That is when the mirror of your heart begins to be polished. That is when you start to become someone new. Tahajjud, that is the name for the night prayer. Tahajjud, from the root word to wake up, because that is what it is. It is not just about prayer. It is about waking up. It is about becoming conscious. It is about pulling yourself out of the sleep that you have been in, both literally and spiritually. And I know that it sounds hard. I know that it sounds like something that only the very religious people do. I know that you probably look at the idea of waking up in the middle of the night to pray and you think that is not for me. That is too extreme. That is for people who are different from me. But I am going to tell you something that might change your mind. I am going to tell you that every single person who has come back to Allah, every single person who has truly transformed their life, every single person who has gone from being lost and broken and running to being whole and at peace and home, they all did the same thing. They all found a way to stand in front of Allah in the darkness. They all found a way to be honest about what they had done. They all found a way to ask for forgiveness with a heart that was genuinely broken and genuinely sorry. And they all experienced the same transformation. They all felt their hearts change. They all felt the marks begin to fade. But how do you start? How do you go from never doing this to suddenly waking up in the middle of the night and standing in prayer? How do you overcome the inertia, the habit, the sheer difficulty of a thing? Do you start small? You do not have to pray for hours. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to start. You set an alarm for the last third of the night, which is different depending on your location and the season, but approximately 1 to 2 hours before the time of dawn. You wake up. You might be groggy. You might be cold. You might be frustrated that you are awake when you could be sleeping. All of that is normal. All of that is expected, but you do it anyway. You do it because something inside you knows that this is what you need. You do it because your heart is crying out for something that it cannot find anywhere else. And then you stand in front of Allah. You might do the ritual prayer. You might read the Quran. You might do the ritual prayer. You might do the dhikr, the remembrance of Allah. You might simply sit in the silence and let your heart speak. There is no script. There is no right way to do this. The only requirement is that you are there, that you are present, that you are honest. The only requirement is that you have turned off your phone, you have closed the door, you have separated yourself from the world, and you have dedicated this time, this sacred time, this holy time to Allah alone. And what will happen? What can you expect? At first, you might feel nothing. You might feel silly. You might feel cold and tired and like you are wasting your time. This is normal. This is a test. This is your nafs, your ego, trying to convince you to go back to sleep, to go back to the comfortable numbness that you have been living in. But you push through. You do not let the feelings dictate your actions. You do it again the next night, and again the next night. You commit to this for 40 days. 40 days of waking up in the darkness. 40 days of standing in front of Allah. 40 days of honesty and vulnerability and breaking. And somewhere between the first night and the 40th night, something shifts. It happens so gradually that you might not even notice it at first. But one morning you wake up and you realize that you did not make the choice you normally make. One morning you wake up and you realize that you thought about something differently than you normally would. One morning you wake up and you realize that your heart is softer. Your conscience is louder. Your awareness of Allah is present in a way that it has not been present for a very long time. This is not magic. This is not a miracle in the supernatural sense. This is simply what happens when you show up consistently, vulnerably, honestly, in the presence of Allah. This is simply what happens when you give your heart a chance to heal. This is simply what happens when you commit to the restoration of yourself. And here is the most beautiful part. Here is what will astound you once you start to experience it. The marks do not just fade from inaction. The marks do not just disappear because time passes. The marks fade because you are actively, deliberately, consciously replacing them with something new. Every night that you stand in prayer, you are writing a new mark on your heart. Every tear that you shed in front of Allah, you are polishing the mirror of your heart. Every dua that you make, every call that you send out into the darkness, every moment of vulnerability and honesty, you are creating new pathways in your heart. You are rewiring yourself. You are becoming someone new. And the most remarkable thing is that this new person is not someone you have to invent or construct or pretend to be. This new person is actually who you were created to be in the first place. This new person is the version of you that was there before the marks, before the running, before the lies. This new person is you, but healed. This new person is you, but whole. This new person is you, but at peace. The Prophet, peace be upon him, stood night after night in prayer until his feet would swell. People asked him, well, how do you do this? Why do you push yourself so hard? And he answered, should I not be a grateful servant? He understood something that most of us have forgotten. He understood that the night prayer is not a burden. It is a blessing. It is not a punishment. It is a mercy. It is not something you have to force yourself to do. It is something you get to do. It is something that is offered to you as a gift, and all you have to do is reach out and take it. But the night prayer is just the beginning. Because when you start to change in the darkness, that change spreads into the light. When your heart starts to heal in the silence, that healing spreads into the noise. When you become a different person in the presence of Allah, you naturally become a different person in the presence of others. You become someone who is more conscious, someone who is more careful, someone who is more aware of the choices you are making, someone who is more capable of saying no to the things that used to control you. And this is when the real transformation happens. This is when you start to not just pray differently, but to live differently. You stop hanging around the people who lead you into sin. You stop going to the places that trigger your weakness. You stop entertaining the thoughts that used to consume you. You do not do this because you are trying to be perfect. You do not do this because you are trying to prove something. You do this because your heart has changed, and your new heart naturally wants different things. Dua, the Arabic word for prayer, for supplication, for the act of calling out to Allah. But it is more than that. Dua is the moment when you stop pretending, when you stop trying to figure it all out on your own, when you stop trying, when you stand in front of Allah and you admit, I cannot do this alone. I do not have the strength. I do not have the wisdom. I do not have the wisdom. I do not know what I am doing. Please help me. Please forgive me. Please change me. Please show me the way.
And here is what most of us do not understand about dua.
We think of it as a transaction. We think of it as a way to ask Allah for things. Health, wealth, success, romance, all the things that we think we want. But the most powerful dua is not about asking for things. The most powerful dua is about transformation. The most powerful dua is about transformation. The most powerful dua is when you are crying out for a fundamental change in who you are. When you are asking Allah to remake you. When you are asking Allah to restore you. When you are asking Allah to heal the marks on your heart. And Allah loves this kind of dua. Allah leans in when He hears this kind of supplication. Because this kind of dua is not about selfishness. This kind of dua is about selfishness. This kind of dua is about submission. This kind of dua is about finally admitting that you are helpless without Him, that you are broken without Him, that you are lost without Him. And when you finally reach that place, when you finally let go of the illusion that you can save yourself, when you finally admit your need, that is when Allah steps in. That is when the real healing begins. Think about the last third of the night again. Think about the time that is so sacred, so special, so powerful. The Prophet, peace be upon him, told us that in the last third of the night, Allah descends to the lowest heaven and He calls out, who is calling upon me so that I may answer? Who is asking from me so that I may give? Who is seeking forgiveness from me so that I may forgive? Do you understand what this means? Do you understand what Allah is saying? He is saying, I am here. I am listening. I am ready. The door is open. All you have to do is walk through. All you have to do is show up. All you have to do is be honest. And yet, most of us are asleep. Most of us have no idea that this invitation, Nen, is even being extended. Most of us are sleeping through the most powerful moments of our lives, night after night, year after year, never once pausing to consider what we are missing. Never once thinking about what could change if we just woke up. But you are not most people. You are here, you are listening, you are considering. And that means that your heart is still alive. That means that there is still a possibility for you. That means that the marks are not permanent. That means that you can come back home. And when you do, when you finally commit to this change, when you finally decide that you are going to stand in the darkness and face yourself and face Allah with complete honesty, something shifts, not just in you, but in everything around you. The people in your life will notice. Your habits will change. Your choices will be different. The things that used to tempt you will lose their power. The things that used to break you will start to heal. You will start to become someone who is not running anymore. You will become someone who is walking towards something instead of running away from something. And the most remarkable thing will happen. You will start to feel clean again. For the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time in your entire life, you will know what it feels like to be at peace with yourself. You will know what it feels like to look at yourself in the mirror and not be disgusted by what you see. You will know what it feels like to close your eyes and not be haunted by shame. You will know what it feels like to wake up in the morning and not be carrying the weight of yesterday's sins with you. You will know what it feels like to be forgiven. But none of this happens automatically. None of this happens because you watch a video or read an article or have a good intention. None of this happens unless you actually do the work. Unless why? Oh, actually commit to the night prayer. Unless you actually stand in front of Allah with a broken heart and a sincere desire to change. Unless you actually say no to the things that are destroying you. Unless you actually choose again and again, moment by moment, to be someone different. This is hard. I am not going to lie to you and say that it is easy, but it is simple. It is simple because there is only one thing you have to do. You have to turn around. You have to stop running. You have to face the truth. You have to ask for forgiveness. You have to stand in the darkness and call out to Allah with complete honesty. And then you have to commit to doing it again the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. Until one day you wake up and realize that you are not doing this.
Because you are broken anymore. You are doing this because you are whole. You are doing this because you love Allah. You are doing this because you have finally come home. My beloved brothers and sisters, I want to end by telling you something that I hope you will carry with you long after this message is finished. The marks that sin leaves on the heart are real, but they are not permanent. The hardness that you feel inside, the numbness, the distance from Allah, the sense of being lost, none of it is beyond repair. None of it is beyond forgiveness. None of it is beyond the reach of Allah's mercy. Because Allah is not just merciful in the abstract. Allah is desperately, actively, continuously reaching out to you every time you feel that stirring in your heart. Every time you feel that sense of discomfort, every time you hear that voice inside you saying that something is wrong. That is Allah. That is Allah calling you home. That is Allah calling you home. That is Allah, love, trying to save you from yourself. Trying to save you from yourself. And all you have to do is answer. All you have to do is turn around. All you have to do is show up one night in the darkness with complete honesty and complete vulnerability and let your heart break in front of Allah. Tonight, if you are ready, set an alarm. Just for one night. Wake up in the last third of the night. Stand in prayer. Or sit. Or lie on the ground. Or simply stand and cry and call out to Allah. Tell Him everything. Tell Him about the marks. Tell Him about the running. Tell Him about the fear and the shame and the pain. And then listen. Listen to the silence. Feel the presence. Know that you are not alone. Know that Allah has been waiting for you. Know that He has never given up on you. Know that His mercy is vaster than anything you can imagine. And then tomorrow, if you want to, do it again. And the next day, do it again. Commit to 40 days. Commit to showing up consistently in the darkness with honesty and vulnerability. Commit to letting your heart be restored. Commit to becoming the person that you were created to be before the marks, before the running, before the lies. This is your invitation. This is your moment. This is your chance to come home. This is your chance to come home. May Allah soften our hearts. May Allah polish the mirrors of our souls. May Allah forgive the marks that we have made on our own hearts. May Allah grant us the courage to face ourselves and the wisdom to turn back to Him. May Allah make the night a time of healing and transformation for each and every one of us. And may Allah bring us all home to where we belong.